Okay, so here's hoping that they pull this off better than Red Tide. But with 4 episodes to its name, I'm not entirely sure. Pretty excited though. So in order to start talking about this, sharing our thoughts and feelings, I feel like everybody really needs a chance to watch it. So here's everything that we have so far.
Sir, you need to see this.
Mother of God. Whoever you are, wherever you come from, stop what you're doing. I'm sure we can reach an understanding. And just listen to me.
Mr. President, it is you who will listen to us.
Sir, you need to see this.
Mother of God. I think we can safely say it's not the Russians or the Chinese or the Boy Scouts of America.
No! Get it away from me!
I'm asking you, just listen to me.
It is you who will listen to us.
AHS double feature.
First and foremost, I can't be the only one who's thinking that the black and white portions, the stuff that's kind of flashing back into what happened in the past, looks more and more like it's not really happening, or this isn't exactly what happened. And it's a recreation of sorts. Like maybe somebody is putting together a film. That would also kind of go into Red Tide, with them trying to film something, but I don't entirely think that's the purpose here. The real point I'm trying to make is that one shot where we see obviously the model car getting pulled up by the light, and it's supposed to be somewhat of an alien abduction. And not only the fact that it's black and white, but the fact that it has almost every other aesthetic of everything else in the black and white past shots makes me feel like all of that is staged. Like somebody is trying to get across a story, trying to sell what Death Valley is, and that's kind of something that's going to be used halfway through this episode, or maybe just even the very first episode, to sell the idea of these teens going to Death Valley for some kind of challenge or something. And honestly, if that's the case, I'm going to be a little bit disappointed, because I was really excited for them to go back in time, doing something completely different, something that we've never really seen in American Horror Story before. And I feel like just the idea that they only have 4 episodes to do this, jumping around in history, showing how America has been interacting with the aliens, and maybe how the aliens have been not only helping the United States government, but also being kind of in charge, or at least somewhat responsible for everything that's been going on in American Horror Story over the last 10 years. That would be really interesting. And while I am hoping that I'm wrong, the only reason why I would like this to be true is the aliens look nothing like the aliens that were shown in American Horror Story Asylum. Like seriously, I can't be the only one who's a little bit annoyed by this.
My God, that's amazing. Wait a second. Something's not right here. You were just making it look like you were playing. You're a phony. Hey, this guy's a great big phony!
One of the biggest things with American Horror Story ever since, season 4 with Freak Show, is just how interconnected everything is. Yes, we all know that all these stories are self-contained, they're supposed to be taken as such, but Ryan Murphy and the entire creative team behind American Horror Story have taken it upon themselves over the last couple of years to kind of play up these interconnectivity concepts throughout this entire show. So for the first couple of seasons, it might not have mattered that there was aliens and zombie-like creatures and stuff from American Horror Story Asylum versus all the ghosts and witches and everything that we saw in Murder House and Coven. But once Freak Show came around and started interconnecting everything, people really started to look for those connections. And at first it was relatively subtle. A character crossover here, a mention of one of the previous locations or situations from another season there. But as time went on, it started to get even more interconnected, at least most prominently in American Horror Story Apocalypse. However, since that mega crossover event, the interconnectivity of each individual season has come into question, most specifically with the spin-off series American Horror Stories, where a certain handful of episodes episodes couldn't possibly take place in the world that we know and love from the original series. So it is quite possible that I'm overthinking this. The black and white versions of Death Valley are in fact things that did happen, and there are just simply other aliens. The ones that we saw in Asylum, and now the ones that we are seeing in Death Valley. And thus whatever story they want to tell here is either connected to the whole universe or just simply its own story. I guess it's possible that we'll figure out but I do want to talk about the fact that Leslie Grossman has already talked about there being a connection not only to Red Tide but to Death Valley, as well as the entire American Horror Story canon up until this point. With all that being said, I do want to share the fact that I'm very excited for Neil McDonough to be a part of American Horror Story, especially here. It feels like it's going to be a fairly prominent role as he's playing President Eisenhower, and it seems like he's going to be joined by Sarah Paulson playing Miss Eisenhower, who is now playing her second prominent political figure role of the year outside of American Crime Story. So yeah, the woman can literally do anything, or at least she's dead set on proving that she can in one way or another. So long as it's working with Ryan Murphy, I think she's happy. So yeah, it's going to be really nice to see Sarah Paulson back. I also love the fact that we're getting Lily Ray back as Amelia Earhart, although we're not exactly sure how long she's going to be in this season. It's possible that she's going to be there maybe for 1 episode, 2 at the most. I mean, we have to get through this entire story in 4 episodes, so don't expect a whole lot of time with each individual character, because with American Horror Story, it is quite possible that some of these episodes are going to be less than 40 minutes. I'm sorry. It's just the reality sometimes. Red Tide's finale was less than 40 minutes all said and done, so yeah, there's that. Personally, I am really kind of excited to see Cody Fern back in American Horror Story. We haven't seen him since Feral, one of the episodes in American Horror Stories, and that wasn't the best role for him, although he wasn't the star of the episode, and his role was simply there to be kind of a jobber to everything else going on and kind of an exposition machine. So long as you give him something really interesting to do, I feel like he can bring out the best in the character. We also have Leslie Grossman coming back, which is always a treat. I loved her character in Red Tide, but I feel like the way they ended it made her character a little bit more annoying than it had to be. It was a really strong performance before she kind of got way too greedy and a lot less intelligent than she was at the beginning of the season and what she wanted to do with a pill. Maybe there's something to say about it was harder to find people with true talent than simply just going around and figuring out people who are writing stuff or trying to put things together. But given the fact that the last episode didn't take any time to explore that, you're just kind of going on assumption, and everything that she did seemed really stupid and pretty prime for her to get caught on doing all of this, so that didn't really work out for me. Finally, one of the last things that we have to talk about is Angelica Ross, who is supposed to be playing a prominent role this part of the season, and I feel I can't be the only one who wants to see the chemist come back. For it to loop back around into Red Tide and give us some inclination about the government, what they're trying to do, and where those pills really came from. You know, use the alien connection or do its own thing. I'm not entirely sure, but I would be willing to bet that that's not the case, at least at first. This wouldn't be the first time American Horror Story has introduced a character played by one specific actor only to come back and introduce another character played by that same actor sometime in the exact same season. So I do feel like it's possible that she will be introduced as a one character before the end of the first part of the season, and if they do bring back the chemist and go into that direction of tying everything up, or at least trying to explain more things, she's going to come back as the chemist along with that other character, or they're going to be living in 2 different time periods, because it does seem like part of this season is going to be taking place in the past. So guys, what are your thoughts on Death Valley? Are you excited for it? Did Red Tide's finale kind of take the wind out of this season's sails for you? Or do you feel like this is another chance for them to kind of pick up what they left off in the first 6 episodes and find a real genuine finale that not only wraps up the story they're trying to tell here, but also Red Tide as well? Hope everyone's having a fantastic day. It's been real.